I'm going to call to order the special meeting of the Parks and Recreation and Intergenerational Services Commission for August 8th. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Sandoval.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Chairperson Price.
I'm here.
Vice Chairperson Levy. Here. Commissioner Hargrove. Commissioner Sandoval.
Here.
Commissioner Ahmad. Commissioner Munguia Esquivel. Here. Commissioner Early. Alternate Commissioner Clayton. We have a quorum.
Thank you. We're going to start tonight with General Administration Function Part 1, 1A, presentations on the public not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of this commission. The commission is prohibited by law from discussing issues not on the agenda brought to them this time. We have Mayor Christopher Cabaldan is going to speak to us today.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you for having me. I wanted to give you a heads up on a project that we're doing at the city that we're encouraging you to be a part of. I know you, Mr. Chair, and Vice Chair Levy are both well aware of this because we just adjourned a meeting about it. But West Sacramento is been invited to participate in the Bloomberg Mayor's Challenge. This is a national challenge for civic innovation that is being sponsored by Bloomberg Philanthropies, which is the principal philanthropic arm of Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York. And it is intended to support transformative innovations in America's cities. It's part of a $250 million initiative by Bloomberg to support work in cities to solve America's toughest challenges and also to take advantage of the startup mindset, the innovative mindset that exists in so many American cities, and then to take the innovations that win the challenge and scale them and replicate them around the country, under the view that if America is to thrive, it's going to be because its cities are succeeding and cities are creating great ideas. So the winner of the Bloomberg Mayor's Challenge gets $5 million to implement their innovative idea. The 4 finalists that don't win the grand prize win $1 million to do the same. And then there's also an earlier stage called Champion Cities that win a smaller amount of money, $100,000 each to build out and test their ideas as well. Hundreds of cities have already been invited to join and have signed up for the challenge. We're one of them. But given West Sacramento's national reputation on civic innovation in all stripes, we're pretty confident we're going to be a competitor in this round. We did also compete in the 2012 Bloomberg Mayor's Challenge. It was the first one ever. It was the last one in the U.S. The Bloomberg Philanthropies has been doing Mayor's Challenges in other continents since that time. So that's now returning home to America. In 2012, we decided to focus our innovation proposal on the topic of food innovation as part of our proposal to become a global food hub here in West Sacramento. So we focused our work in that first Bloomberg Challenge on food innovation. The 3 top projects that we were considering submitting, one of which we did submit, were actually very interesting, creative ideas in the food space. One was to convert a motel on West Capitol Avenue into an urban farm with a resident farmer. We were building off information that we were learning from the Center for Land-Based Learning about the need to help build and strengthen the agricultural workforce and the farmer workforce in particular in the region. And so to be able to take an excess motel and convert it into both local farming, but as a path for folks going through farmer training programs to be able to get their first start with real capital in real markets and affordable housing. So that was one idea. The second idea was we said, look, we have a challenge with food deserts in the city where many folks of various backgrounds in different neighborhoods don't have regular access to affordable, healthy local produce. And what can we do about that? And we were inspired by Farm Fresh to You, which is the state's largest, essentially a CSA box delivery service that delivers fresh produce to your door on on a regular basis. They are the largest in the state that does that, and they're here. Their operations entirely here in West Sacramento. We were inspired by them. We said, well, what if we could just get a box of fresh produce every week to everyone? That would have the benefit of improving access to healthy foods for those that don't currently have access. But it also would allow us to buy at a bulk rate, essentially. If we're essentially acting like a co-op and buy enough fresh produce for the entire city at one time, we could get it for a much more favorable price. And then third, we would be able to provide a steady, certain supply, demand chain for farmers who could sign contracts with us in order to provide healthy produce for 55,000 people on a sustainable basis. So for farmers that were struggling with sources of income, we thought this would be a way to meet their needs, meet the needs of folks who need healthy food. We thought, well, it would be great if we could do that, but how are we going to get that to everybody's house? And we realized there's, other than the Postal Service, there's one other organization that goes to everyone's house every single week, and that's us. We're picking up garbage and recycling. What if we somehow, with a trailer or something, we hadn't built out our idea, but somehow we were able to take food out to homes at the same time that we were collecting refuse and recycling. So that was the second idea. The idea that we actually did submit after scoping out some of the costs and the challenges was a proposal called Farm to Fast Food. It was another motel conversion proposal, but it was rooted in the understanding that we had learned that for folks who wanted to start their own restaurant, for example, and the sort of the not even urban legend, but the real life story of so many folks. I know this lady. She's in my neighborhood. She makes the greatest tamales. She sells them door to door, and she's always wanted to start her own business. But it's impossible because in order to start selling food at scale, you're required to have a licensed commercial kitchen. A licensed commercial kitchen costs roughly $500,000 in order to construct and get through the permitting process. That's too much of a barrier. And then you have to quit your job, and because you don't operate a restaurant just on one day a week or one evening, you've got to focus on it completely. So those are barriers to starting a new restaurant for micro entrepreneurs who need a pathways to opportunity. At the same time, we had a challenge of parents in the community saying, "Look, I work all day long. So does my spouse or my partner. And by the time I'm ready to get home, it's time for dinner. And I would love to be able to have fresh produce and fancy meals, but I don't. So I don't have time for it. So we just stop it and get fast food on the way home. If there was a convenient, fast way to get healthy foods that was local produce based, I would use it, but it doesn't exist, and it would be a huge benefit to me. And so the proposal that we submitted was trying to tackle both of those problems along with the enduring challenge that we have along West Capitol Avenue of an oversupply of motels given the demand for tourist and business and other motel room services. So we said, what if we acquired either a motel or something like the old Hefty Burger site at the time, this is 2012, and we converted that into a restaurant incubator where in order to get you would get the right to use the restaurant incubator space to operate your own fast food place for one night a week or for one day a week. So that tamale selling neighbor that you have, she can have Tuesdays, and she would have the commercial kitchen from that location. She'd have the signage and everything else. And in exchange, she would agree that she's only going to be using locally sourced produce, that there'll be, it'll be healthy tamales. So we'll be achieving all of those objectives in one. So that was a proposal called Farm to Fast Food, and that's what we ultimately submitted. As I say, it didn't win. At the time, no city under 150,000 people won the challenge, and I threw a little bit of a fit. And this time when the new challenge came out, we said, look, we're interested, and we're known as one of the most innovative cities in America, but we don't want to participate in a challenge that we can't win. If it's just going to be for Chicago and Boston and New York and Los Angeles, then that's not for us. And Bloomberg Philanthropies has made it very clear they're looking for cities of all sizes this time. And maybe especially cities like ours, where a large plurality of Americans live, but that don't have full-blown 27 people staffed offices of innovation and are just trying to figure it out day by day. And so they're very interested in cities like ours, and our city in particular, as a laboratory of innovation in this space. So we're in. We've committed to compete in the challenge. Our proposals for our innovative ideas due October 20th, and we'll be very shortly announcing the schedule for how we're going to accomplish that. But tomorrow or Thursday, but probably tomorrow, we expect to have live a link through the city's website and social media properties for folks to submit their own ideas to us to get it started around innovations that would improve the lives of our citizens, improve the effectiveness and the efficiency of city government as we begin this process. I should say we're really focused on innovative things, different ways of approaching problems that are surprising and unexpected, that use technology and that solve multiple problems at once, like the farm to fast food or the fresh food on the back of the garbage truck, or the urban farm affordable housing spots on West Capitol. We're looking for really bold new ideas. What we're not focusing on just new ideas to spend money. And so a suggestion to say, hey, what we should propose is having more swings at each of the parks, or we should build a soccer facility at X or Y park. That's not innovation. We already know that works, and that's a good idea. We just don't have the money to do it. So the mayor's innovation challenge from Bloomberg is not about what things do we want or wish for that we just can't afford to do. It's about how do we transform some of those problems into opportunities. In part, that's because the winner gets $5 million, which is a lot of money, but you get $5 million one time. So things that are going to cost us money into the future aren't good candidates for the Bloomberg Challenge. We're really trying to redesign and reinvent the way the government works to meet the needs of our citizens. So things that are ongoing expenditures, things that are capital projects, or things that aren't really proposed solutions, that are just problems or wishes. Like it would be great if more people rode on bikes and horses in the city. That's not actually an innovation idea. It's just a wish for what the world might be like. Those also won't. We'll scrub those from the very beginning because they won't win because there's no innovation proposal to be funded in order for us to accomplish that. So we're really asking folks to dig in and get disciplined around how they think about innovation, but also put their creativity hats on and think without boundaries about the things that might be possible to do if we just had the creativity and a little bit of startup resources in order to make them happen. So as the city's part of the city's leadership team, I'm asking you to participate in that process and to join us both as in terms of your own ideation and submitting to the portal once that's up tomorrow, but also in the community as leaders in the community to encourage and to help your neighbors and your friends, your coworkers, your Little League teammates to submit ideas for the Mayor's Challenge. Because we know we can win, and we know we have some big challenges in the community and some big opportunities, and a little bit of innovation, a little bit of resources, and will go a long way in helping us to maximize that potential. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. Otherwise, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thanks. Item 1B, Commission Communications. I think we don't have anything for the special meeting. Presentations. Number 2, recognition of martial arts instructors Chuck and Cheryl Saxton for their service to the community.
Hello and good evening. Allow myself to tell you a little bit about who I am. My name is Sam Brinkheis. I'm the Theater and Arts and Special Events Supervisor at the Community Center across the street for the City of West Sacramento. And on behalf of the Department of Parks and Recreation, we would like to recognize the outstanding service to the community by our longtime martial arts instructors, Chuck and Cheryl Saxton. Chuck and Cheryl began teaching in West Sac all the way back in 1982, and over the course of 35 years have guided and mentored hundreds of local children and adults, many of whom who have reached black belts in karate to experience the physical benefits, improved self-esteem, and respect for others that are associated with martial arts. During their 3.5 decades of service, they have instructed at many local sites, including Buck's School of the Tiger, Evergreen Elementary School, Sam Combs Park, the Broderick Senior Center, and most recently at the City of West Sacramento Community Center across the street. They have participated in many local parades and even traveled to Hong Kong in 1989 to practice their craft. Chuck and Cheryl have been married for over 50 years, have 3 children and 6 grandchildren, many of whom have earned black belts themselves. We are all truly grateful for their dedicated and selfless service to our community for all these years, and we would just like to recognize them with a certificate of appreciation, and I would ask that Greg Price come down and take a photo op, and we would appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, sir. And a round of applause.
Have the mayor join you as well. That'd be awesome.
Maybe by the seal. All right.
Just thank you for a great career. We love working with kids, always have, and we're very family oriented, and we love to see how the kids' confidence grew over time. We're not a big tournament type martial arts, but we just love to see how they develop, and it's been very, very rewarding. We cry every time there's a black belt because it means so much. I mean, they're like our own children, and sometimes they are. But we love it.
It's hard to quit. Time to travel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate
right,
it. Have a
thanks.
good night.
All right, so we need a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Commissioner Sandoval makes a motion, Commissioner Levy seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? None. All in favor of the motion carried. So now we've closed the special meeting, and now we're going to call to order the regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation and Intergenerational Services Commission for August 8th. We've already done the Pledge of Allegiance. We need to add that Commissioner Ahmad has joined us to the roll call. We got that. General Administration Function Part 1, we don't have any cards for anyone wishing to speak. 1B, Commission Communications. We got anything for that? I think not. So on to step 2, our presentations. Number 2, the STEPS Summer Interns Update. Samantha McDonald and Terrence Wu and Elena Ledesma.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you all for being here and for allowing us to make our presentation. My name is Samantha McDonald, and I spent the past 8 weeks of the Summer Steps internship program working at the Rec Center. Okay. So the STEPS internship program is an 8-week program where we as interns earn digital badges to kind of show for what we learned for the summer. So we have playlists of tasks, and we complete the experiences, and then we upload assignments to show what we learned through the learning experience. And by the end of the summer, we are left with a digital resume that gives detail of all the experiences that we had throughout the summer. So what you'll see here is the website of one of the playlists that we complete. So all of the interns complete one badge, and some of the things that are included in that badge were attending a city council meeting and going on city tours of places like the rec center and the water treatment plant. And we also attended lunches where we heard from department directors about their own journeys, and they shared with us words of wisdom as we move forward in our careers. So why did I choose to apply to work at the Recreation Center? For starters, I was born and raised in West Sacramento, so working in my community was something that I was very interested in. I graduated from St. Mary's College in May, and I'm moving on to attend grad school in the fall, where I'll be studying sports psychology. So sports psychology is a pretty broad field. It can go in a lot of different directions, and one of those branches revolves around exercise for the average person and its relation with wellness. So by being at the rec center this summer, I learned a lot about the intersection between exercise and wellness with public service and city government. And I learned so many things, and I really think that had I spent my summer elsewhere, it just really wouldn't have been the same. The first of the badges I worked towards was really focused on the daily happenings at the rec center, and it allowed me opportunity to participate in a lot of the behind-the-scenes operations that go into running the facility every day. So I got to work in customer service at the front desk, and I got to work in childcare. I spent a day with the Junior Giants program, and I helped coach a t-ball team, and I even learned how to check the chemicals in the pools at the rec center. One thing that I did all summer that I really enjoyed was taking photos. So this allowed me to see the programs that we offer, as well as interact with those people who are participating in them. The second badge I worked on was much more project-based, and it allowed me room to be creative as well as manage my own time, because these are things that I worked on all summer. So I'll briefly touch on a few of those projects. There we go. Okay. So the first project I worked on was doing research for a fee assistance program. So the department currently offers scholarships and fee assistance for certain programs, but not all programs. So what I did was I researched what surrounding cities are doing and how we could work to have a process where we could use fee assistance for any program in the department, and that would really allow more of our low-income members of our community to participate in more. Another task I worked on pretty much every day all summer was rentals. Renting the pool, renting the party room. It really peaks in the summer at the rec center, and a lot of detailed work goes into completing those rentals. So I learned how to process a rental from intaking their application all the way to refunding their deposit and receiving feedback. And so by doing that, I was really able to help lighten the load of those who spend a lot of their time in the summer doing that, but have a lot of other things to do. And the final project I'll tell you about was connecting with infrequent pass holders. So we consider infrequent pass holders to be those whose passes have expired in the past 3 to 6 months, as well as those who pay for passes and we really don't see all that often. And that's important to us because we really want everyone to be aware of all the benefits that come from being a member of the rec center. And we also want people to feel comfortable in our facility. There's nothing worse than feeling uncomfortable in a gym. It really doesn't give you any motivation to go. So it's important for us that people feel welcome in our facility and they're willing to ask questions and they want to be there. So I really did learn a lot this summer, more than this, and I wish I could share it all. But I'm really grateful that the city has a program like this because I've looked, as someone who spent the last 4 years in college, I spent a lot of time looking into internship programs, and this one is really unique. And so I'm very grateful that I got to spend this summer in a very hands-on learning environment where I got to experience all these things that will likely be a part of my career, and a lot of other places wouldn't allow me to experience these things yet. So it really confirmed for me that I am going into the right field, and I'm very excited for the future. So I would like to thank Cindy Tuttle and Paul Reyes for making this internship possible at the Rec Center. And I would also like to thank my mentor, Kaisa Miller, and Brittany Sino, both who I worked with very closely all summer. They were always very willing to let me in on their projects and share their experiences with me. So thank you all for your time, and I'm very grateful that I got to have this experience this summer. So thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Elena Ledesma. I'm 17 years old, and for the last 2 months, I've supported the city in a summer steps intern at the Early Learning Services. The photo you, I think, see in front of you is from the kids' 4th of July parade that they went through City Hall. I just thought that was a cute picture to share. So a little into my world. I was raised in West Sacramento. I originally lived in the State Streets, and now I'm living in Southport. But I attended school all my life in West Sacramento. I went to elementary school at Our Lady of Grace on Linden, and I just graduated from River City High School, which I'm very proud of. So I've spent a lot of my life here and learned about the community, which of course was facilitated through my parents, who taught me a lot about being a part of your community. My mom was a longtime resident. My dad is a transfer resident who got really into the city and is a big supporter of it. And they both taught me to be involved in the community and do as much as I can to be a part of it, which eventually got me to working in my hometown, where my first job was at Devil May Care Ice Cream, which is in the Washington neighborhood, and eventually gave me a lot of courage and to come and do more jobs throughout the city. So what originally got me interested in doing the internship here was the Kids Home Run program. So in 2016, Measure E passed, and as a part of that was Kids Home Run. And I quickly learned there were 3 parts, and already at 17 years old, I was eligible for 2 of them, which were the digitally badged internship and the first year of city tuition paid for, Sac City tuition. And I kind of wanted to go, I was really curious about what the internship was about, and I wasn't sure where to start, and I was like, okay, let's take it back to first base of Kids Home Run, which was universal preschool, which really got me interested in the program and eventually led me to applying to early learning services, which is where I am now. As Sam briefly touched on, she talked about the internships for the city, but each department also has their own XPs, and our XPs for early learning were opening and closing of the preschool, sitting in on an early learning specialist meeting, visiting the rec center child care facility, assisting at the Learning Ladder field trip, helping at the Learning Ladder open house, visiting a family child care home, which we are lucky enough to visit Little Busy Bees in Bridgeway Lakes area, touring a Head Start and State Preschool, which we did at Alice Norman Education Center, and tonight we're presenting at the Parks, Recreation, and Intergenerational Commission, which is one of the last things we had to do. We also, not listed, had to do a department evaluation, which will be taking place tomorrow, which will give us the department badge. So some of the daily things that I get to do are Pinwheel Papers in Preschool, which is just a simple way to remember. Pinwheel is an online database which the early learning team uses to track the quality of preschool through the city and the county. And in the future, it is imagined that this system is how the city will keep track of the Kids Home Run children who move from preschool to kindergarten in the city. Some papers that I do, daily opportunities present themselves with new work, and I have to make sure I'm on top of it. I've done several different things over my 8 weeks here, including the demographic data form, environment rating scale guides, and teacher in-service activities. And when all that is done, I get to go over to the preschool, get to see the kids. Some responsibilities there are a little different, such as drawing in arts and crafts, testing knowledge with memory cards, getting soaking wet in water play, and sometimes I get to bust a move in the dance circle at the end of the day. And all these activities just show you what everyone's really here for, and it's the kids learning and growing every day. And of course, you see their smiles every day, which always makes your day brighter. Some things I'm really proud of, my gold stars. In Pinwheel, I have revised the current quarterly program checklist into the new demographic data forms. I have created simpler means of communication between early learning specialists and providers. And at the end of my time here at City Hall, it is projected I will finish over 30 demographic forms into Pinwheel. Some papers I'm really proud of. I created the Learning Ladder's Teachers In-Service game, Marble Roller Coaster Construction game, and self-evaluation game called Would You Rather. I have worked on a family child care environment rating scale guide for providers, and I have made improvements on the previous filing system in the office. Some things I'm really proud of in the preschool aspect of the job is I have attended and helped at a class field trip to Sam Combs Park. I assisted both the Blue and the Green Room at their 4th of July parade through City Hall, which was the first picture in my slideshow. And I helped administratively at Learning Ladder Open House. Some projects I'm really proud of that I got to work on in my 8 weeks here. I ran the city Instagram page for a day covering the various activities in the department. I assisted at 3 Generation Tech classes at the library, and I wrote a brief article for the city's weekly newspaper. And for those who are curious about the picture, another of my gold stars was winning We Dance at the Teacher in Service, the Learning Ladder Teacher in Service, which is what we have there, my other fellow intern, Terrence. So I just want to take this time to thank Justine and Trent, who were thoughtful enough to come watch us tonight, and they've supported us through this whole journey, through this whole 8 weeks, and my fellow intern, Terrence, who's also helped me with a lot of knowledge throughout the time, and he just graduated college, gave me a lot of advice for going into college, so I've really appreciated all my time here, and I just want to thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Terrence. Good evening, commissioners. I am the second Early Learning Services Summer Steps intern. Before I talk about what I did here at City Hall, I'd like to introduce myself to you first. So I am a city boy, born and raised in San Francisco, who discovered his love for plants while studying at UC Davis. So I took my love for the built and natural environments and decided to study sustainable environmental design with a focus on urban forestry and landscape restoration. This allowed me to learn urban planning and design techniques alongside concepts of horticulture and ecology. And now, as weird as it is for me to say this, I have my degree. So what is a person who studied sustainability doing working in education? Well, sustainability, the 3 E's I've learned is that sustainability is economic, it's environmental, and it's equitable. Very broadly, it is the ability to meet the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. The key word here is future generations. They do not have to be generations of people or animals or plants that don't exist today. They are the children, which are who I am impacting today. So my work here at City Hall was mostly being a teaching assistant across the street at the Learning Ladder preschool. I've also worked a lot on developing the long-term curriculum and incorporating sustainability into it, which is what I studied. And I also had various other City Hall work, which included making these slides. I actually went home and I think it took like 30 minutes to get this picture and slide just right, so I could have my notebook and my badge in it. So here's like a timeline of the interesting events I've had. These don't include all the XPs. I think I had 25 I wanted to share, but I narrowed it down to 13. Well, first I graduated June 18th, and then my first day was June 19th here. I got to go to Seattle, not as part of this internship, but on my own to become a climate reality leader. I've gone to a Heritage Oaks planning meeting because of my background in landscaping and ecology, and because I am in the Parks and Recreation department. I've also gone to various different schools to look at state preschools, family child care homes, just to see how other preschools operate and how they are. And you know, there's a whole bunch of other things. I've gone bowling with the kids on the field trip. I've attended a city council meeting. Today, I just came back from a waste management meeting. Waste management is actually donating a lot of money so that programs like Learning Ladder can operate. And they're interested in seeing how I am developing the sustainability curriculum for preschoolers in West Sacramento. So now that we are at the end of my internship, here are the things that I've experienced, learned, and accomplished. I've built a relationship with the teachers, and the staff, and the students. I have a greater understanding of the work that is being done both at City Hall and at Learning Ladder. I've gone to various different visits of city facilities, such as the water treatment plant, the police station. And I've gone to a lot of different meetings where I was not only able to sit there and learn and listen, but I was able to participate in, which I thought was very valuable. So I'd like to thank Justine Tren and the city staff for investing time and resources in our education and experience. We did come work every day, but I believe that we had more to gain from this experience. So I really do appreciate the resources spent on us. And thank you, commission members, for listening. I know you all have important things to discuss, so it really makes us feel like we did valuable work when you have a lot of time for us to present what we've done at the end of our internship.
All right, thanks. Presentation number 3, presentation on the proposed ropes course and grant opportunity for Heritage Oaks Park site. Tracy.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tracy Michael with the Parks and Recreation Department. I'm pleased to be here this evening, joined by Clarewald USA representatives Cale Wisnia and Catherine Rion, to share information with you on the proposed ropes course and other proposed improvements for the Heritage Oaks Park site. At your last commission meeting, we had discussions about the ropes course project, and there was real interest in getting a little more information on what's involved in a ropes course, and so we thought this would be a great time to take the opportunity to share that information with you. I have a few slides that I'm going to walk through just to provide some context and background, and then I'm going to turn it over to Cale and Catherine to walk you through the proposed site plan. So just a little bit of background on the site. It's a little bit over 9 acres located at the corner of Lake Washington Boulevard and Village Parkway. The city received this parcel as part of the Newport Meadows development back in 2016. So the city is the current owner of the property. It's a beautiful site. Over 40% of the site is covered with oak trees, over 110 mature valley oak trees and 10 heritage oak trees. The General Plan 2035 document identifies this site as a neighborhood park. And we were, in lieu of the developer completing street frontage improvements around the perimeter of the site, we had payment received from the developer so that we could incorporate street frontage into the actual site design. So we do have some funding available for street frontage improvements that can be coordinated with what happens on the site. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Cale to talk a little bit about the ropes course, and then I'll be back to talk more about some other opportunities on the site.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Commissioners. Yes.
Just press this button forward it, the left one, yeah.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Cale Wisnia. I am the partner, partial owner of Clarewald USA. Catherine Rion is also a partner, and we have additional partners coming from Austria that own the other portions of our company that we've created. And I want to give you a little bit of background. Yes. So basically, we own and operate an architecture and design firm here in Sacramento, in the city of Sacramento, and are from California. My sister and her husband live in Austria, and they run a ropes course in Austria and have for the past 3 or 4 years, and opening up a second one there, and it's been doing really well. And at one point, we went to visit them and got to talking about why don't we have ropes courses like this in California. We have such amazing resources in terms of our land and preserved areas, and the trees are fantastic, of course. And so when they visited the next time around, we began to look around California and other surrounding states at certain options, or various options. And we eventually landed on sort of looking around locally here in Sacramento. And we're very fortunate at that time to get in touch with Cindy Tuttle, who then introduced us also to Tracy, and we began looking at, and who they immediately said, hey, we have this parcel here, the Heritage Oaks Parks parcel, and we loved it. So we got to working with the city about what that meant and the various requirements. What we found out immediately, too, is that there are actually 2 other prominent ropes courses in California, or close to. One is in Tahoe City, as well as in Mount Harmon, which is close to Monterey Bay. So what that told us was that there were far enough away from the city of West Sacramento that there was a good market here and an opportunity here. And Catherine and I have lived in Sacramento now for 15 years, 14 years. And one of the things about West Sacramento and Sacramento County is the recreation interests in this area. So we thought this is a great opportunity, so we continued forward. So just a little bit of information about ropes course. I don't know how many people are familiar with what rope courses are, but basically they are assembled through a series of exercises erected within trees. They are usually from platform to platform with a challenge in between, and they range in difficulty. And the focus is largely on balance, upper body and lower body strength building, also confidence building, because you can be up from anywhere from 10 to 15 to 60 feet in the air. So there's this sense of vulnerability, although it's extremely safe because of the harnesses. So you're always tied off. There's never a time when you could potentially fall. And the harnesses that we use communicate with each other, so you can actually never unclick until you leave the course. So we looked at as we began to work with the city, we looked at the terms of the lease, and so what our intention is, of course, is to develop the trees within the Heritage Oaks Park. As Tracy mentioned, there are over 100 live oaks there. They're fairly mature. They have been evaluated for health. We look like we have some very good healthy trees out there. And our goal, of course, is to maintain that health. One of the major benefits of Clutterwald coming to become the stewards of the Grove is that when a ropes course takes on the stewardship of trees, we intend to maintain the health of that tree for as long as we possibly can, of course. And in addition to that, we help monitor the strength and the growth of the tree through its lifetime. In addition, we'll be planting trees on the site, as you'll see in the following slides, next slides as we get to them. So our goal is to sign a 10-year lease agreement with a base rent, a percentage of gross, or a base rent, depending on what's higher. We have an estimated revenue to the city over a 10-year period of time of $1.1 million, so it's a good revenue builder for the city itself. As I said, our intention is to be the stewards of the city, or of the trees, and the goal there ultimately is to provide reports back to the city at regular intervals of the health of each and individual tree that we are using, and actually we are going to be tracking all the trees in the grove regardless of use. We already had our ENA approved back in March, and now we're on to take a look at some of the improvements. So we want to do this in phases because of the cost of ultimately getting it going, and one of the major things is getting the business up and running. So the first thing we would do is put in the tree top adventure courses within the trees, installing the courses there for use by the public. We would include a public restroom and storage kiosk, as well as a children's play area. The team that we're planning on having come out to build the course also builds play structures in Austria, and so we're going to be using some of the actual tree limbs themselves when we go through pruning process of the trees now, because we had a report recently done. There are some trees that need to be removed as per the consulting arborist that reviewed the grove due to hazard. And so we'll try to reuse as much of the trees and the wood from that as possible to actually make the structures themselves for the playground. And then, of course, the parking area that we're going to need on the site. So as we move on to phase 2, that is, Tracy touched on that. We have, there's some money set aside for the street frontage improvements. So on your screen, you'll see number 5, which includes the sidewalks that go around the perimeter of the site. That includes along Lake Washington and Village Parkway, as well as the beginning of the connection sidewalk on the northwest side of Greenbrier, and you'll see the reason why. So Stage 2 would be a full, the second stage was sort of 1B, and we hope that those will happen simultaneously. So in Stage 2 or Phase 2, the goal would be then to provide walking access from Greenbrier with a walking path that connects the sideway extension over across to Lake Washington, as well as meandering through the trees a bit to link up with Village Parkway. This would be a wider path. We're hoping for a pervious material, but hard enough for accessibility. So anyone can go on this. Any capability can go onto any accessibility can go onto this pathway. The goal then would be to put interpretive signage along this. One of our goals is to elevate and sort of educate or provide an educational component, which would be interpretive path signage that talks about the trees, the environment, the canopy, and the various flora and fauna of the area. In addition to that, at that time in Stage 2, we would build the concessions building, as well as a gathering and event shed, which is marked as number 8, and additional picnic areas. The idea with the concessions building is to provide sort of a better sort of place of destination. People can come, grab a coffee, maybe some snacks before they go out. They can go and play in the play area while maybe some people are in the trees. It really becomes a full park at that point, usable for the surrounding neighborhoods and the community. And then finally, Stage 3 is the California State Park grant program. I don't know, Tracy, did you want to talk about that specifically?
Sure, I'll move on.
Yes, please.
Is we have an opportunity to apply for a grant being currently offered by State Parks. It's the Outdoor Environmental Education Facilities Grant Program. So I'll have another slide that walks through the objectives of that program, but we have a whole round of proposed improvements as part of that grant application that complement the ropes course and help to further complete the park development. I failed to mention earlier that when the city received the site as a park site, we don't have any funding available right now to develop the park site. So this lease opportunity provides great opportunity for the city to have a portion of the site developed, and the grant provides another opportunity to enhance that development and further develop the site. The grant improvements proposed on here as part of Phase 3 include number 10, a seasonal multi-purpose space, and this would be kind of native grasses that could be used. The Clutterwald USA model assumes a very high percentage of students visiting the ropes course during the week, like 60%. I think of your business as school groups. And so having a place where students can kind of spread out, and even you can program it or it can just be relaxed space, is important. Has a series of interpretive signs and trails, both within the trees. Ropes course area is fully accessible to the public all the time. People are up in the trees, but the public who is not using the ropes course can walk around through the trees at all times. And so this would provide some trails with additional interpretive signage, as well as a kiosk and a council ring, which is sort of, we saw an interesting idea. It's like an amphitheater, but the idea that we saw was an amphitheater and the seating was built with tree stumps in a half circle, but it provides an outdoor classroom space that can be used by students, it can be used by any group that just wants to have a space to have discussions or education. There we go. So just a little more information on the grant. It's the grant is offering up to $500,000. No minimum, but it's one-time funding. The application is due September 1st. The objective of the grant is to provide public outdoor structures or exhibits that facilitate focused learning in a natural outdoor setting. So all of those improvements that I just mentioned as Phase 3 of the project help to achieve that objective by really providing the interpretive signage that would have a theme related to the site and provide an education opportunity. Some of the examples that the grant application provided were signs, kiosks, nature trails, dry riverbed restoration, tree care, and amphitheaters. So all of the things that we're proposing for the site line up perfectly with the grant program. So we are actually planning to take this, the grant application forward for council's consideration in the coming weeks. Right now, what we have on your screen is just a list of items that have been completed and are soon to come. As Kale mentioned, we had an exclusive negotiation agreement signed in March. We have had multiple review sessions with the multidisciplinary team in the city to help provide input and guide the design. We have we completed an updated tree assessment report, and this lease does provide the city with an opportunity for more focused tree care than we might normally provide in a park setting. We are here with you tonight sharing information. We will be presenting to City Council in closed session an update on our lease negotiations, and then also taking the grant application to Council in open session for their consideration. We have a neighborhood information booth that we're setting up on August 25th in that Newport Meadows neighborhood. We're getting a lot of inquiries from potential buyers and from people who've recently purchased that just want to understand more about the park. And so I have a little flyer that I'll pass out to you after our presentation. We are hoping to have the lease approved and permit applications submitted in September. We will have family from Austria out on the site in September to be looking at the design and hopefully begin some components of the construction by the end of the year and have the first phase or two open in late summer 2018. That concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions for me or for Kale?
Any questions?
Hi. Thank you for your presentation. It's super exciting. I can't wait till next year when it's open. I had a question about the concessions you mentioned. And it's just as a parent, I always I go to these nature centers and stuff, and a lot of times when I go to the concession stand, they're selling super unhealthy things. It's it's nature themed, it's sustainable, but then you go there and you get Doritos. So I was just wondering if with the concessions, if you're outsourcing that or how you're going to be supplying that.
So we've also already been talking to a potential tenant. I mean, obviously, to begin with the first sort of storage hut in phase 1A, the idea would be to sell sort of healthy treats, things that are good for working out, for physical activity, so granola bars, things like that. I think our main focus is natural and locally sourced as much as possible. But as I said, we've already approached 2 tenants that are interested. One is Cornflower, which is a local creamery that offers vegan ice cream as well as regular ice cream, fantastic stuff, as well as Buffalo Pizza. And so they're both local, and they pull ingredients from local resources, so the idea would be that they would come in and help us. So we would create the tenant space, and then they would occupy it as the tenants. So that's one of the goals there.
That's awesome. I love cornflower, so thank you.
I think the general theme of the entire park should be about nature and health and recreation, and the goal would be to provide suitable sustenance for that kind of recreation, as opposed to what you're saying, like gross food.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? No. All right.
I have what are some of the bigger challenges you'll be seeing or you think you'll be facing?
In terms of the development of it? Well, I mean, there's always, of course, a challenge when you begin a ropes course, because you don't know what it's going to be like. You don't know. We don't have a real demographic to pull from. We do know that Tahoe has it. They're booked constantly. They climb in the winter in the snow. People will climb in the trees in the snow. Mount Hermon is also booked solid. We tried to make a reservation recently, and we can't get one till the end of next month. Their prices, one of the other things we noticed is the prices are much higher. We're trying to keep the price down. We're falling at least $10 to $15 less than ropes courses across the nation. So that's one of the intents is because we don't know what the demographic is here, although we have made some assumptions that we have a highly recreational community, including people from Pipeworks, for example, from Sacramento, and also Rocknasium from Davis. Those are the types of people normally that want to do this kind of stuff. But I think that we believe that once people go out and see that they can actually get up there, they can challenge their fear of heights, they can test their strength, that they'll want to come back and do it more. So I think that's really the biggest challenge we face, is not knowing exactly, but we feel like we've made a good decision.
Thanks. Oh, Danny, go ahead.
I got a question in regards to safety and liability in terms of using that piece of land, and because the courses are pretty high, will all liability lie within Clutterwald, or what's the deal with that?
Yeah, so all the liability lies on us, of course. We carry the insurance. Our courses are built based on an ASTM standard set by ACCT and PARC in the nation. So it is a standard. Our German builders, our Austrian builders, actually exceed those standards, so we'll be safer than most ropes courses in the nation. So with regards to the construction and the liability, there's some state regulations that we have to follow, and they're reviewed. We actually do, we check the courses frequently on our own. The state requires us to check it on a periodic throughout the year, and then once a year there's a full state review. An inspector comes out and reviews every aspect of it. So with regards to state requirements, so we follow that. The safety aspects, we use, as I mentioned before, we use clips that can't be unclipped. So if you've been to any ropes courses around the nation, there are clips and harnesses that are available that are just like your standard clips that you can clip on, clip off all by yourself. Our clips speak to each other. If one clips off, the other one can't unclip. So it's impossible to unclip. So even if you fell dead weight, you'd have one clip attached. So even though you're on a course, for example, in the images you're seeing in front of you, what you may not be able to see clearly is that her clip is attached to a aircraft cable that's above her head. So even if she was to fall, she would hang from that aircraft cable. And that's what the state inspects, is the size. And we actually have a structural engineer who has to verify those strengths. So while you feel like you're going to fall, and believe me, I've done it myself, and you really do feel like you're going to fall, you cannot fall. You can only fall maybe a foot from your current position, a foot or two from your current position. And then you have to sort of pull yourself to wherever you need to get to. And, of course, during the courses, there's always guides that stand below the exercises and monitor, and they usually remain silent while people struggle through their inhibitions. But if they really feel like someone's freaking out, they'll call up and provide encouragement, and worst case scenario, we'll climb up there and actually lift them into place, help them lift into place. And it does happen. That does happen, of course, but it's very rare. So we feel pretty safe about it.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, anything else? All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Consent agenda, approving the minutes of the June 6th regular meeting. We need a motion to approve the minutes. Are there any comments on the minutes? Commissioner Esquivel makes a motion, and we need a second.
A second.
Commissioner Ahmad seconds. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? None. Motion carried. To approve the consent agenda, the minutes, onto the regular agenda, number 5, update on the Pioneer Bluff and Stone Lock reuse master plan waterfront trails.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Katie Yancey. I'm a Senior Program Manager in the Economic Development and Housing Department. I had the honor of presenting to you last year in July in relationship to the Pioneer Bluff. That was right after a very hot and very well-attended open house that occurred at the Stone Lock facility, where we had about 115 people come, walk around that unique sort of industrial facility that the city has in the middle of its sort of waterfront area. And we had a brief discussion with the public and with this commission, as well as the Historic Preservation Commission, about what the city was looking at doing with that facility. At that July meeting, we made several recommendations to both commissions about how we were going to proceed with the work that we were doing. One of them in particular was a recommendation to pursue establishing the levee setbacks, which are a really important precursor to doing design work related to the waterfront trails. And I'm here tonight to give you an update on that work that's been done and to solicit some comments, guidance about where we are, because we are really moving fast, and we would really like to get your input as we look at getting an encroachment permit from the Central Valley Flood Protection Board to actually construct a trail. This is just a quick recap of the presentation that was provided to this commission. This was our sort of conceptual open space and recreation vision. It included 3 parks. You can see there 1, 4, and 5, 4 being the restoration and sort of revitalization of the Stone Lock facility, as well as a series of trails that went along the Deepwater Ship Channel and along the Sacramento River. What I'd like to talk to you about tonight is sort of the work that's been done to establish the levee setbacks for 2, 3, and 6. 7 is an existing levee, so we already had that analysis done. And then to also talk to you about the work that's been done with West Safka and the City Council, works that we've been doing with the Parks Department and the Public Works Department to integrate flood protection with trails and open space. And then we're going to be asking for some direction about some of the design and aesthetic components of the trail that we're at 30% engineering. So quickly, we had recommended that we pursue the levee updates, the levee setback, and just to update you, we've met with Central Valley Flood Protection Board. We believe we have established, at least the staff level, where the setback line is. So for Pioneer Bluff, it's the orange line that you see there. That's about 115-foot setback from the edge of the water. It's a bluff, so the slope is very steep, and it's right from that tip top of that bluff edge. This was presented to the West Safka Board both in February and in July. It was also presented to the City Council in June, and we received overwhelming support to advocate for the orange line, and the Central Valley Flood Protection Board is supportive of that. We're just waiting for the Army Corps of Engineers to get back and also give us their support for that line as well. This is the setback area that we've proposed for just that area south of the Mike McGowan Bridge. It's a much more significant setback, but we're also made some headway in getting that orange line. That's about 120 feet back from the center line of South River Road, which sits on the crown of the levee. We're also doing work on the bulkhead, which you can see is being pointed out. There we go, right there. We're the same firm that's been doing this analysis on the trail, on the setback levee, is also doing an analysis on how to retrofit that bulkhead structure. That was also a recommendation that we brought forward to this commission in July. And then lastly, this is the setback that we've proposed on the existing Barge Canal Access Trail. This is a well-used amenity in our community, very loved every time we're out there. People are always out there with their dogs and their kids, and they're fishing. My kid loves to fish there. So we were really trying to balance, at least in this area, the port's desire to develop the site. They're the owner of the site. They issued a RFP to develop the site last summer. And we went to the West Safka Board in February, and we really asked them to guide us through how do you balance flood protection with development, how do you balance the need for these O&M corridors with this desire to have this infill development. And so we've settled on a 47-foot setback, which we think happily marries the need for a sort of a meandering trail, protects the vegetation, and keeps the buildings far enough away from the waterfront that you don't feel like you're in somebody's front yard when you're out enjoying that public space. We presented to the council sort of how this all integrates into the active transportation elements that are in the bike ped trail master plan, that are in the general plan, so that really we're incorporating not only just parks and flood protection, but we're also trying to incorporate all of these sort of connective tissues that need to run throughout our community so people can bike, so that they can look at taking trips through their bike, or they can walk instead of getting in their car. So here you can see 5A and 5B, they've been identified as an active transportation element, so they're meant to connect to other trails. They also connect to the Sycamore project. There's 4 phases of the Sycamore project, and this trail intersects with phases 3 and 4. So we've been working a lot with Public Works on how that's going to be incorporated into the Sycamore Trail project. So this brings me to the 30% engineering drawings that we've had Wood Rogers prepare. As I mentioned, these have gone to the West Safka Board to discuss sort of the O&M conditions. What are they looking for in terms of making this facility work for flood protection? And I'm here tonight in front of you to sort of ask, okay, what do you think we need to make sure that it works as a trail and it works as a park? Because there's also a trailhead component to this, which I'll talk about in just a minute. So as you can see, the path could have just stayed on the crown and levee. We kind of created a nice meandering feature. We tried to respect the vegetation that was out there. There's several little seating areas that we've pulled back away from the trail. They don't have shade structures. Shade structures is something that the West Safka Board expressed a lot of concern about, that they would get in the way of any large trucks that had to get out there for either putting out riprap if there was a flood protection event, or if they needed to do some patrol. RD 900 also expressed some concerns about shade structures. So we've created these really interesting seating areas that contain artifacts from the Stone Lock facility, which I will show you an example of what those are. You can see also it mirrors nicely with the existing parking lot, so we're not touching that parking lot, we're marrying up to it. And then we're also creating 2 connections to Jefferson, one at the signal and then one also at the sidewalk, so you can kind of decide where it is that you want to go. You're not stuck having to cross at the signal. The feature that I wanted to talk to you about also, in my staff report, I mentioned that there was a parks/trailhead feature that we were seeking some guidance from this commission on, is that the city owns all this property right here. So most of this property is actually owned by the port, but the city owns all of this, and it's about 85 to 95 feet wide. And we've asked Wood Rogers, who is the firm that's doing this trail design as well as the levee setback, to try to incorporate all the pieces that are kind of quote-unquote missing from these flood protection O&M corridors. This section of the trail is not subject to the Army Corps of Engineers or Central Valley Flood Protection Board's jurisdiction. So this is our opportunity to bring in perhaps more park-like elements that would otherwise perhaps not be well suited for a flood protection O&M corridor. So Trace, Michael, and I are meeting tomorrow morning to do a kickoff for this discussion. And so if one of the things that the commission has any guidance or feedback at this time about maybe what they're thinking they would look for, I would be happy to take that information into our kickoff meeting, but we'll also be coming back at a later date once some additional work has been done, specifically related to this, what we refer to as the Jefferson Corridor Park. And then you can see here, it runs along the southern edge of the Stone Lock facility. The city's property boundary is this line right here. The port owns this. This is all developable. This has all been reserved for future park space. And so you can see the trail runs along there. We're not touching any trees. We're being really respectful of the existing tree canopy out there. And then here, we're connecting up to South River Road so that someone can get on to the Mike McGowan Bridge. So that is sort of the location of the trail. It's been carefully planned out so that it meets all the flood protection requirements. Additionally, it also entitles the port's property. Establishing the levee setback is an important component for determining how much property that the port has that's developable. So all of these things are kind of being layered upon each other: flood protection corridors, trails, entitling property for development. So you can kind of see how all these pieces fit together. And what we were hoping to get your feedback on tonight, in addition to the Jefferson corridor, is also related to some of the design elements and the aesthetics. So the lock facility, we're hoping to use as context. It has a bit of an Art Deco, very sort of late 1930s, 1940s kind of look to it. It has some really beautiful old light standards. And so we're looking to kind of respond to that. And the light fixture that seems to do that best is this one right here. So we're going to meet with Tracy, Michael, and I, and Sam Cooney and I are going to meet and discuss some of the O&M issues related to this, but in terms of the aesthetic, right now staff is recommending that we respond to the context that the Stone Lock facility provides as we're looking at what the light standards are and what the furnishings would be for the trail. Additionally, that we're recommending that we take artifacts that we find at the Stone Lock facility, and there are, I apologize for the small picture, but there are these striped bumper features that were used when the ships would come in, when like the tugboats would come in. There's an old boat out there, and they were sort of used to bumper the boat, and they've been stored. We're saying, since we can't have shade structures, perhaps we should incorporate those into the seating area to give them visual interest and to kind of create a unique space out there. So we're saying, let's bring those Stone Lock artifacts into the trail. So that's a second recommendation that we have related to the design. The third recommendation that we would have is that we respect that no shade structures be occurring in this flood protection O&M corridor. First and foremost, that is a request that came from RD 900 in West Safka. But secondly, shade structures complicate our already 18-month-long encroachment permit process. So we are trying to sort of minimize the amounts of asks that we have from our state and federal regulatory agencies. And then lastly, we're recommending that the trail be a 12-foot wide asphalt path with 2-foot DG shoulders. That is, I think, what a nice balance of flood protection. A truck can get out and serve on that. It also allows for there to be green space on both sides of the trail, so we're not oversizing the man-made features, and we're allowing the natural features to speak for themselves. So those are really my 4 recommendations for the aesthetics. And so that concludes my presentation. I look forward to your comments, and I'm happy to return at a later date with more work that's being done and more work that's being done on the Jefferson Corridor. I suppose the last thing I should mention is that we are going to be attempting to submit a Central Valley Flood Protection Board permit in October, November, and we're hoping that if the sale goes through with the port, that we would potentially have proceeds to construct this trail sometime in late 2018, early 2019. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions or listen to your feedback. Thank you.
Trails as, in the fall it gets dark pretty early, so I'm just wondering if there's any thoughts to any safety guards along the trails.
Oh, yeah, so there's extensive lighting that's proposed, and it's multi-tiered lighting, so it's security lighting. So what that essentially means is that it's low lighting when there's nobody out there, and then if there's movement, the light kicks up. So if a police car drives by and they see the lights kicked up, they either know something's going on that shouldn't be going on there, or if somebody's living there and they see the light kicked up, they know, hey, I need to go maybe look and see what's going out there. It incorporates what's called CPTED. It's crime prevention through environmental design, and our Wood Rogers is well-versed on that, and so they've been incorporating those, what we refer to as CPTED principles in the design.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Boy, have you come a long way, baby, since last year. This is like amazing. Thank you, Katie. I have 2 questions. The first one is off Jefferson, when you make the right turn on number 3, that's where John Vincent puts his flags once a year for the 9/11. How would that impact it?
So this property here is where he puts his flags primarily.
Yeah.
That's owned by the port, and until the port develops that property, I assume that they'll continue to issue him a license.
Okay.
What I'd very much like to do is, when that becomes a development site, is perhaps create something there for that gentleman to, he won't be able to do the same display that he's done previously.
Correct.
But perhaps this site would be an alternative site until that's developed, or we could find something for him to do along this Jefferson corridor.
Okay, I know that he just got a license to do it for this September coming up, but in the future, he's like a mainstay, and people look forward to seeing the flag display because
Yeah.
he encompasses all,
Absolutely, and I would also add that if I feel indulgent in going back another slide, or will let me do that? Sorry. Nope. The Stone Lock facility is fairly large. It's there's this area up here as well. that could also have that element. But the area to the north, which you can't see in this aerial, that's actually also owned by the city. So all told, that Stone Lock Facility Park, which I identified in the previous slide as that pink area that surrounds the lock facility, that's about 7 acres. So hopefully we can find a space for him in that 7 acres to do something. It won't be as you drive by it and have that, but I think we can find a place for him to maybe find a permanent home.
That's wonderful, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I just wanted to comment on the Art Deco. The look and feel with the 1930s is extraordinary because I think you marry off the traditions of what it was with the modernization of what it is. So, thank you.
Thank you.
My questions are kind of about the connectivity of the trail systems. So you have your Clarksburg Branch Line Trail ending, and then that connects at crossing Locks Drive to, I think you call it the Jefferson parcel.
Yes.
The trail that goes along there, and then that would then connect back over to the future South River Road
Trying to get
trail.
there.
So, yeah.
There we are.
So where 5 turns into sort of 5A and 5B. There's some numerous issues that come up when trying to cross Jefferson. So whether or not your trail crosses Jefferson, and that's going to be marked some way to inform vehicles that that's where your, or bikes and peds, where that's where they're supposed to go, or are we then coming off the trail and then turning into street vehicles again and crossing on the south side of Locks Drive and then going back across Locks Drive again to get back onto the trail, or do we go straight across the crosswalk and just trying to be compliant with what bicycles are supposed to do at interchanges?
Yeah.
Whether it's a trail interchange or if it's actually you just kind of, the trail starts and stops. That's not, I don't need an answer for that, but that's something to think about is coming off of the Clarksburg Branch Line Trail, how do you get across Locks Drive?
I would actually be happy to respond to
no,
that.
go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so Chris Doherty and I, who he's sort of the bike
Yeah.
person in the city, he and I had extensive conversations about how do you transition is that 6 to 5B,
Yeah.
and how do you make that seamless? So one of the things that we're planning on talking to Wood Rogers about tomorrow is potentially sort of redesigning that intersection and pulling the cars back so that those, the Clarksburg Branch Trail, as it continues and becomes 6 to 5B, that instead of bringing the cars right up to Jefferson and right up to the sidewalk, that we actually pull the cars back, create maybe a bike box, because hey, we're trying to build this active transportation system. Cars might want to make a left and get onto Jefferson. So use that space so it reads as a continuation of the trail. Have the cars pull to the east of it so that it reads more like a continuation and it respects the interaction between the cars and the bicyclists there.
Yeah, I saw that when I went over there today and looked at, there's already the old train crossing limit lines and stuff that are there that indicate that a lot of people stop back there anyway.
Yeah.
And they don't pull all the way forward, so it looks like it would work really well.
Yeah, it's just paint to fix that problem, and it really
it's easy.
so.
And then the second part was having the asphalt path going all the way to the Palmadesi Bridge.
Yes.
And then after that would be future phase, right? There's nothing planned to go on the other side of that as of yet.
Yes, it is. So unfortunately, it's outside of my grant scope of work, and my grant is being paid for. It's being paid for by a grant, and it's being paid for by the port. So until I can get more money from the port, we're stopping there.
Okay, that's fair enough. I think that was all my notes. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Thank you for your presentation, it was wonderful. Going back to we mentioned about you and Tracy meeting tomorrow to discuss the park front. Just wondering what kind of ideas do you have in mind so far?
So the rough concept that we included in sort of the when we asked the Wood Rogers to put together a proposal was we said we thought that it should serve as not only a trailhead for this area, not only should it pick up these pieces that are missing perhaps from the rest of the trail because it's a flood protection corridor, but we thought it's a good way to sort of introduce that once you're getting over that side of Jefferson, once you're starting to head to where that locks facility is, and then as you move either north up the riverfront or you moved east of the riverfront, the general plan talks about transitioning the land uses there, and it becomes much more urban. And so we wanted to use this park perhaps to signal that you're entering an urban area, there, or urban light, as we refer to it, because Stone Lock is designated with a designation called mixed-use neighborhood commercial. And so it's a weird phrase, I understand, but it can tolerate a lot of different sort of like urban light uses. And so we thought that it could sort of serve as a way to signal, hey, you're now entering the urban or urban light waterfront neighborhoods in the city of West Sacramento. And that's really as far as we got. And so if you hate that idea, please tell me now. If you like that idea, please tell me now. And we'll kind of take that back, noodle around with our landscape architect and kind of try to come up with some ideas. And I'd be happy to return to this commission with sort of our initial first thoughts on what that might look like. But that was initially what we thought is it actually serves a wayfinding purpose and a gateway purpose. So we wanted to have it maybe, like everything else, do multiple things.
Yeah, no, I like that idea a lot. I like the idea of having more urban kind of spaces like that. I think that's definitely innovative and great. And I would love to hear more about what you're thinking. She mentioned the flags. I was thinking about the sunflowers. There's a lot of wild sunflowers there that always grow in that field. I know because I've gone and collected some. So, just think about incorporating a lot of that natural kind of look and feel. That place would be great.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Item 6, workshop in the Washington Neighborhood 3rd and C Street Action Plan.
I promise.
That's you too?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would just like to take an opportunity to introduce the Summer Steps interns from the Economic Development and Housing Program. You had an opportunity to hear about the other interns that have been working under the departments that report to this commission. Our interns missed the opportunity to go to our commission, and there's not another commission meeting until after the Summer Steps program is over. Both these interns are participating in something we refer to as an advanced playlist. So you heard about some of the things that were happening in sort of the initial Summer Steps. Jane is a second-year Summer Steps intern, so we had to step up her game and make her actually start working on things that are on the council's strategic agenda. And then we were lucky enough to have Eric join us. He's a grad student, so we thought, well, he can handle it too. So we gave him the advanced playlist. So I just wanted to have an opportunity to introduce them. I've had the honor of being their mentor, and I'm really looking forward to having them present their interpretation of the 3rd and C Gateway Action Plan that's on the council's strategic agenda. So thank you for letting me give a quick introduction.
Okay. Move this a little up. So good evening, commissioners. Thank you for having us tonight just to talk about the 3rd and C Gateway Action Plan. So my name is Eric Will, and so to give you a little bit of background for this 3rd and C Gateway Action Plan, as Katie mentioned, it's part of the 2017 strategic plan as set forth by the City Council. It's considered a high priority policy item on that agenda. So that's part of where this plan comes from, but it also comes from the 2015 Washington Realized document that was put forth by the city. So this kind of marries those two, I guess, items together into the 3rd and C area, also known as the area of the Firehouse and Burgers and Brew. So furthermore, this action plan serves as an intermediary document between Washington Realized and the upcoming Washington Specific Plan that is slated to occur in the city in the upcoming years, as well as just to bring together all of the recommendations and projects that were either put forth in Washington Realized or have just been collected along the way that have been noticed by staff or by commission, city council to get moved forward on. So a little bit of background on Washington Realized to give you a little bit more context. So Washington Realized in 2015 is known as an SCS, or Sustainable Community Strategy. So part of this document, or the two parts of this document, were to integrate transit-oriented development, or TOD, with the complete community strategy to upraise the quality of life within the Washington district. So it does this by bringing together many different variables and a multidisciplinary approach in order to create connectivity within the neighborhood. Second, it provides recommendations for both interim and long-term regulatory updates, new program activities, and improvements within the Washington District. So what this presentation seeks to do is just to inform you about what staff has prepared for the Third and C Gateway Action Plan, as well as to provide you with an update on any, in-design projects, in planning projects, or in concept projects, which my colleague Jane will go over in just a little bit. So, did I do that right? Okay, so as we can see up here, we have our study area for the Third and C Gateway Action Plan. So this is has been expanded on from actually a focus area within the Washington Realized document. So focus area 2, as it was originally known, is now Third and C area. And the current structure of this overall plan, kind of using this guideline for this area, is to have the study area, and then we break this down into different types of projects, so mobility projects, parks projects, as well as infrastructure projects. As you can see from the picture, you have the boundaries for the Third and C study area as the Broderick Boat Ramp to the north, you have the Sacramento River to the east, you have E Street to the south, and 4th Street to the west. So that kind of encompasses this entire area. Focus area 2 from the Washington Realized document was slightly smaller. So we actually expanded this area to increase connectivity to the Parks and Recreation uses for the Sacramento River, as well as to just overall connectivity of the trails in the area. So as I mentioned before, in the layout, we'll be discussing different types of projects in this presentation and as part of the Third and C Gateway Action Plan. So we have in-design projects, in-planning projects, and in-concept projects. So first, I'd like to discuss an in-design project on the next slide. So this is more of an update for everyone. The Riverwalk North speaks to the connection of the existing trail from the levee, along the levee from I Street to Broderick. As you can see from the pictures that we've provided for you in this presentation, as well as some improvements along D Street, 3rd Street, and 2nd Street. So this project has been funded by the Community Development Block Grant and is in design. And so what that means is that we are currently at work on this project with the environmental to soon be coming up and for construction to hopefully begin in spring of 2019. So ultimately, this project is supposed to create a safe, ADA accessible and desirable bicycle and pedestrian connection between the 2 existing trails that I mentioned before. Overall, then this will also link to the Washington District and adjacent neighborhoods in tandem with the new C Street Bridge and the Tower Bridge. So it's all about these connections coming together. We're not just trying to focus on individual projects. If we can, we are trying to include, integration in a multidisciplinary approach. So we're not just thinking about Parks and Recreation, but we're also thinking about the connections that Parks and Recreation has, to the local uses. What are people using in the area so that they can utilize this and want to come and live there and want to go and play and be involved in all these activities. That's a little bit of the background on the Third and C Gateway Action Plan, and I would like to call Jane up to the microphone to tell us about more projects.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jane Griblin, and today I will be talking to you about the parks projects for the Third and C Gateway Action Plan. So first, we have the Riverfront Park and Broderick Boat Ramp Trail Wayfinding projects. First, we're going to talk about the Riverfront Park. The Riverfront Park is located directly adjacent to the Riverwalk at the terminus of E Street. And this park concept that you see here on the left is taken directly from the Washington Realized document that Eric mentioned before. And this park is supposed to be envisioned with the I Street Bridge conversion. And then second, we have the Riverwalk North Trailhead, which is located at the Broderick Boat Ramp. And currently, this trail remains unpaved. And so next, we're going to consider some policy considerations from Washington Realize. And so the park's purpose is to connect the river to the community so that the riverfront feels a part of the neighborhood. And this can also be said for the Broderick Boat Ramp, in which we want to integrate it into the neighborhood as well. And so now we have some areas which we seek the commission's guidance. And first, we have, is this concept art here an appropriate footprint for the riverfront park? So initially, in other words, we were wondering if we were to expand the footprint, then should it be expanded into a developable area? And second, how should the riverfront park coordinate with the I Street Bridge deck conversion? We would like some insight on, in light of some ADA issues. So we want to connect the park to the future I Street deck conversion, and this would be done by either a ramp or an elevator or both, and so we were seeking guidance on that as well. And then last, what improvements are needed for the existing Riverwalk Trail to promote use of the boat ramp and to the connecting trails? And so what security and safety measures should we take? Should we install lighting, cameras, et cetera? And so, yeah. Next is the water tank beautification. And this is the water tank that is located at the entrance of the Broderick Boat Ramp. Currently, it is just plain white surface. The water tank is gated. And some policy considerations from Washington Realize is that we would like to improve the existing facility by enhancing its use as a wayfinding element, while continually emphasizing its connection to the river. And so some guidance that we're seeking is how best can the wayfinding beacon concept be incorporated into the beautification of the water tank. And so Eric already talked about what wayfinding beacons were, but just to kind of refresh, wayfinding beacons are meant to create destination points and connections to the waterfront. And so they serve as markers for bicyclists, pedestrians, and also as public art. And they also create a sense of community pride. And the second is, what are the commission's recommendations for the beautification process? Currently, staff recommends a mural, but we were wanting to get your insight as well, and also possibly incorporate the river theme. Next, we have the Washington Monument relocation. So we currently have the Washington Monument located on the corner of 3rd and C Streets. And this monument is going to have to be moved for some street widening with the construction of the C Street Bridge. And so some policy considerations is to reinforce the circulation goals brought out in the Washington Realize, that it is essential to integrate strategically located art that reinforces the Washington District's cultural identity. And so if the monument can be moved, should it remain along C Street? And if so, is the Center Island streetcar stop an appropriate site for this location? And so staff recommends relocation to an appropriate site where the circulation policies brought out in Washington Realize can be implemented. And this second chart right here, diagram, is actually street plans to widen the streets, and there is a streetcar stop there as well. And so to go with the policy considerations found in Washington Realize, that's where staff would recommend to relocate the monument. And the last question, if it cannot be relocated, should the monument be rebuilt as is in a new location? And so if the monument cannot be physically relocated, we are seeking your guidance on what we should do with that. Last is the historic water tank on the left and the Riverwalk Tower on the right. And the project is for relocation and redesign of these two. The historic water tank is located on the corner of 2nd and C Streets near the I Street Bridge. And the Riverwalk Tower is located on the corner of 3rd and B Streets near the Broderick Boat Ramp. And so some policy considerations from Washington Realize is to make use of the wayfinding beacons and the elements to place emphasis on the Riverwalk. And so these two beacons we want them to serve as wayfinding beacons, as Eric brought out from Washington Realize. And so some questions that we have are, how best can the wayfinding beacon concept be applied when determining where the historic water tank should be relocated? So considering the policies from Washington Realize, which places emphasis on connections to the riverfront, and essentially advertising the Riverwalk. And the second question is, should a redesign of both the tower and the historic water tank be considered so that they may better serve as trailheads or wayfinding beacons? And so initially, these two were designed together in 1996 as part of the riverfront improvements. And so we would want to keep these in like a same theme if we were to redesign them. And we want to also, as I've mentioned before, incorporate all the wayfinding policies in Washington Realize. And so if the commission is not prepared to give thoughts or recommendations at this time, then we can return with some concepts as well. Thank you.
Does anybody have any comments, questions at this point? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So anyway, just some quick next steps. We'll be taking this presentation with any recommendations that you have for us to the Transportation, Mobility, and Infrastructure Commission on the 11th, Arts on the 25th, Economic Development on the 27th, and City Council sometime in December. Like Jane mentioned, if you have any guidance for us at this time or any questions, and if you're not prepared, then we can always come back with further. Yeah.
So you're looking for us to give any comments right now and/or comments to staff if we have them later? Perfect. Anybody have any questions or comments right now?
I have I'm sorry, the question I had was about, just you're going to be going to the Transportation Mobility Commission. Right now, I was just wondering, as far as like the widening of the street, do you know if the design incorporates like buffering, like a street with like trees or shrubs or anything like that?
If you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and answer that question. So can you just repeat it again?
So just the, right now, if with the current design for the widening of C Street, right, is it going to, will they have a buffering for like, sidewalk buffering for the street? Right now, there isn't buffering.
Yeah, so my recollection is that the Washington Realized included a cross-section for C Street that included separated sidewalks, which I think is what you're asking about, so that you're not walking right on the edge of where the traffic is going. So my recollection is that on the north side, there's a separated sidewalk, and what separates you from moving traffic is a lane of parking and then a bike lane. And then I think along the south side, it's a bike lane and then like a 4-foot wide separated sidewalk tree area that has yet to be planted, and then a new sidewalk.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's go this way this time.
I have a quick question regarding the Sorry, I just missed my, the connection between the north and the south part of the Riverwalk. Right now, it's not paved, and it's dirt, and you were talking about ADA accessible. Does that include paving that section right there?
It does.
It does? Okay.
So you're talking about the trail connection
Yes.
between the existing Riverwalk Park and the Broderick Boat Ramp,
Correct, yes.
all depending on what happens with the bridge and all that stuff. That's always fun. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But yes, it will be paved.
perfect. I don't have anything right now.
Yes. Yeah. And dependent on CDBG money as well, so just throwing that funding.
I think earlier this year, there was a concert that took place out in that same area, and I'm just wondering if there are any developments that will impact the ability to continue doing that.
So I believe the concert that you're speaking of was at the existing Riverwalk, which is not in our focus area.
Okay, thank you. And another thing too, I just wanted to thank you both, Will and Jane, for providing us with the presentation as the summer interns, and we wanted to get a sense of what was the biggest thing you guys both were able to learn during your internship here.
So I had a chance, in addition to this, to do some real estate acquisition processes. And so I think that was, or has been, very enlightening to me, just to learn how the city works through these transactions and works through the real property process. So, yeah, very interesting to me.
So this was my main project for the summer, coming up with this draft 3rd and C Gateway Action Plan. But I also did some mobile home park database construction, and I made a affordable housing list for the website as well. So yeah, just continuing my stuff from last year. The Stonelock event that Katie mentioned in her presentation earlier, I helped with last year as well. And so I'm just continuing my leadership skills and trying to, get some experience.
This is more of a, I guess, procedural question for Cindy probably, but if you're looking for comments from us on all that stuff, lots of questions, lots of other stuff that's going to come out, what would be the mechanism for us to make those comments if we don't know that now? If, like you said, mentioned coming back, when would that fit on the calendar, being that our next meeting would be like October?
Cindy and I are having a sidebar. I'll go ahead and take that one too, if that's okay.
Okay.
So we'll provide you with the PowerPoint presentation that has the questions that Jane was providing you, so that you can kind of chew on them a little bit. And then you can email me directly, and I'll be working with Tracy and Cindy on sort of incorporating those concepts. And then, it's perhaps wishful thinking that we're going to get something approved by the council in December, but if we don't set a date, we'll never get to it. So, I think the same thing will happen with the Transportation, Mobility, Infrastructure Commission, the Arts Commission. Will bring similar questions, and then slowly the feedback will come probably through via email, which is probably sufficient. And then, if we need to, we'll return with sort of our interpretation of the feedback and make sure that we're on point with what you have, what your comments are, what your recommendations would be.
So I think just that, my comment is, it looks like you're going down the right direction, and it's just the, getting the details together to be able to make a presentation to the council to get something approved is gonna need to be, smaller, if it makes sense, to be able to present it as, this is what we're doing, and not get caught up in the details of the design, because that's not our job to approve the details of the design. It's our job to provide the guidance on the direction, which I think, my opinion is, it's a great direction.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, our ultimate end package is a list of project descriptions as well as like implementation measures, because we're attempting to do an addendum probably to the general plan, so that they become action items. So they're not just, we had the InDesign and planning and concept. So we want to, those things that are in concept, really make them implementable, so we have all those answers for us. So that's the end game that hopefully they will stay on as next steps and turns and continue doing for us.
Yeah, I just remember our last process of designing public art for a water tower, which turned into a commission meeting where everybody started picking colors. It's not our job to pick colors, so it's really, I say we like to approve things and maybe not be as involved in the detail planning, so you guys did a great job of laying that out, of what was happening, and saying, this is our action item 1 is move the tower. Action item 2, if we can't move it, should we rebuild it? Those are the direction items that I think our commission and the council really like to have their input in. So thanks for that. Thank you. Anything else? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for service to the community in the summer. All right, item 7, director's report.
Hi, good evening, Chair Price, members of the commission, Cindy Tuttle, Director of Parks and Recreation. We have a very uplifting report for you today. I'm really pleased to report that the council approved construction bid for Bright Park Phase 2. That is a $1.6 million investment in the Bright neighborhood, which is, as you know, we've been reporting on for quite a while now, so we're really excited that that construction will be getting started here very soon. Secondly, the council also approved $80,000 for a much-needed shade structure for the Kaboom Disney Play structure, also at Bright Park. As we know, there were trees planted around that facility. However, it's going to take a long time for those to actually mature to the point or the level where they're going to be able to provide adequate shade, and therefore Measure K funds, as you may recall, for those of you that lived in the city during that campaign, K is for kids, and they're putting their money where their vote was, and so again, $80,000 approved for that shade structure. We have also have gotten word from Assemble Sacramento that they will be submitting plans for the Nest project, which is the hydration station along the Clarksburg Branch Line Trail. That project will go through the normal city review process and also be subject to council approval for an agreement to accept those improvements. So you'll be hearing more about that project as it moves forward. And then I'm going to ask Tracy Michael to come up and give you an update on the Parks and Open Space Master Plan as well as the Recreation Feasibility Study. But I'd also like to give Tracy some kudos. She wrote a grant in about, 2 days, was it? Maybe it was 24 hours, I don't know. She goes, Cindy, I found this money and I want to write this grant and I can do it. And sure enough, she can do it. So she was successful in securing $40,000 for a National Parks and Recreation Association, the Disney Company combined grant for $40,000 to replace the toy structure at Elkhorn Park as part of a larger project that the city has been working on. And literally, she wrote it in I'm not kidding, 2 days. What's amazing about this $40,000 is you might think, oh, well, that's not very much in the larger scheme, but there were over 250 nationwide applications for this money. There were only 25 grants awarded and only 2 of them in California. And West Sacramento was one of them. So I give Tracy all of the credit. And again, yeah. So we're very excited about that opportunity. So a lot going on in the city. And again, I'm going to have Tracy come up and talk to you about those other 2 items. I'm happy to answer any questions once she's done.
Great. Your last meeting, I provided an update on the Parks and Open Space Master Plan update effort. At that time, we were in the process of evaluating proposals received. We had 4 submittals in response to our RFP. The evaluation panel recommended PRIS Consulting as the preferred consultant for the effort. We did take a contract to City Council last month for consideration, and the council requested that we reconsider the public outreach component of the scope of work in light of all of the work that's been done in a lot of related recent efforts, including the General Plan 2035, the Bike Ped Trail Master Plan update, which is almost complete, our age-friendly action plan, the Southport Levee Recreation Feasibility Study, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And so we have worked with PRIS Consultant to update the scope of work. It's a little more streamlined, it saves a little bit of money, and we're going to be taking that back to council next week. So hopefully we'll have an approved contract and be able to move forward with that effort. It does call for using this commission as a primary forum for progress reporting and also for the public to provide input. And then as part of the Regional Trails Initiative, DWR provided the city with $30,000 last year to study recreation opportunities as part of our levee improvements. We chose to apply the study to the Southport Levee Improvement Project because that was in the advanced planning stages at the time, now under construction, and we see that there is a lot of opportunity once this recreation feasibility study is complete to seek grant funding for construction of recreation trail improvements. And so we are expecting the draft study to be complete early next week, and hopefully by the next time you meet, we'll have the final draft study ready for you to review and share with you. And that completes my updates.
No, any questions on that?
That concludes my director's report. Thank you very much.
All right, 7B, Commission Calendar. Unfortunately, my packet only goes to September, so I think our next meeting's scheduled for October? Okay. Anything else to be talked about on the calendar? Don't think so. Item 7C, future item requests. There's a note here about I Street Bridge debt conversion and bike share program updates.
If I may, you
Yes.
may recall this commission had requested that those items come to you at this meeting. However, Chris Doherty, who is the lead on both of those items, was unavailable to come. However, he will be coming to your next commission meeting to give you that report.
Perfect, that'll be timely at that point. Any other future item requests? Commissioner Mott?
I have a request, was put in by someone in my neighborhood. I live close to Westfield, and, we find a lot of human fecal matter in that park, and it doesn't have a bathroom. And I was just wondering if there's any plans in the future that the staff has considered for putting a bathroom there, or any kind of like bathroom-like receptacle, because it's been brought up to me a couple of times. Westfield Village, next to the elementary school.
Just wanted to add that as part of the Parks and Open Space Master Plan update, we will be doing a thorough inventory of all of our existing facilities, the conditions of the facilities, but also looking at any improvements that you might be missing in some of the facilities. And so that's the type of information that we're looking forward to receiving so we can put it into our 10-year action plan for park-related improvements.
But to answer your question, I don't know what's planned facility-wise specifically for that park. We can ask with our superintendent and make sure and get you an email and let you know what's scheduled to go there. Thank you.
I think also for the future item, since the West Sacramento Cyclocross Grand Prix will be happening right before our next meeting, we might be able to get a report even directly from Commissioner Hargrove on that, since he's the race director for that race as well. So I'll circle back with him and staff to see if we want to get that actually on the agenda as a presentation to see, like, just a little blurb on how it went and.
Oh, and how, I was going to say you want a post-report.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'll check in with him to make sure that's something he can prepare for us. Because it's, doing bike races and stuff like that before, it's like, to do on a Tuesday right after you're done on Sunday might be a little much, but probably to be able to get something together for that.
Yeah, I can let you know that it's a pretty big deal what's going on with that this year. I don't know if you've heard it, is now a 2-day event. And I think it went from technically a local race to isn't it a national race now, national level race, and a huge sponsor has come in, Toyota has come in to that. So it's this little small thing that happened right here in West Sac, just down the block, has really blossomed into this pretty cool nationwide kind of event. And so I think it's a great idea to have him, if, like you say, if he's not still on oxygen, to come and report, because West Sacramento, as you know, is a sponsor of that event, and we're really excited about what it's going to bring to the riverfront.
It's
Great
only going to
idea.
get bigger in the future years with some of the other changes that have gone on in the industry. One of the big trade show convention that used to be in Las Vegas every year is now going to be in Reno. So it's going to, so the people that were going to the race in Las Vegas on the Wednesday following the West Sacramento race will now be going to Reno the Wednesday following. So it's a lot easier to piggyback travel. So it's going to be on the world tour international level. It's going to be a big deal.
It's very exciting for the city, for all of us.
Any other item requests? All right, seeing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Levy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion carried. We are adjourned.